Hey, friends! I'm Jesse Fisco.
And I'm Ambry Fisco.
As founders of several successful businesses, we've experienced absolute joy and satisfaction working together to build our empire.
Our journey started off as a small business idea and has launched into a multi-million-dollar portfolio. It would have never been possible had Jesse and I not understood the key principles of making it all work together. But it has not been easy.
We found ourselves in the trenches trying to balance real life with business life while maintaining our strong commitment to creating an amazing marriage.
And we've emerged in a beautiful way together. This podcast was created to help you do what we've done, build an amazing marriage together while maintaining balance between life and business.
So here we are. You're listening to the Matrimonial Merger, a couple's guide to balancing life and business.
Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Matrimonial Merger. Jesse and I are super excited to have you here today, and we're going to talk about something super, super great tonight. So I want you to think for a second. Have you ever felt like you looked at the person that you love, you've been married a year, 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe longer. Have you ever looked at that person and you're just like, I am committed to this person. I love this person and I care about this person, but I don't know if I'm in love with this person anymore. Like, and that, do you feel scared? Do you feel like confused? Do you feel, these negative emotions that you're not sure how to understand? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And the solution behind that and what you need to do to get out of that awkward, awful feeling of like looking at this person going, I love them, but I'm not in love with them. That sucks.
It freaking sucks.
That's a terrible feeling right there.
It's the worst feeling. And you know what? Ultimately, what it comes down to is you've got to raise your individual bar.
Yeah.
And that's
100%.
what we're going to talk about today, because it's not your spouse's fault. It's not your kid's fault. It's not your in-laws' fault. What it is you just have to raise your own bar.
Yeah.
And you've got to focus on you.
Look inside.
That's right.
Which might sound like, wait, what? Like you're telling me that to fix my husband's problem or my wife's problem, I need to fix myself. Absolutely what I'm saying. And what's so great about this is I can tell you that Jesse and I have experienced this firsthand, both of us, like on both sides. So I think that that's powerful because I find a lot of people that we talk to look at us and are kind of like, oh, you guys, have this perfect relationship. And I think that people sometimes assume that it's just like easy and it's always been that way. And we've always, had the relationship that we have right now and that, whatever. So I'm excited to kind of talk about a little bit more in depth our journey of becoming as a husband and wife, because you may already know that any like successful business or entrepreneurial journey requires a solid relationship.
Oh yeah, 100%. And so what I want to do is I want to take you all on a story time with Jesse here, because this topic, like the minute we discuss this and said this is what we're talking about, I was like, you know what? I need to go. I need to accept this. And
Jesse's about to get real.
I'm about to get real. So
my favorite.
For me, it was about a year and a half ago now.
Oh, I think it's been it's almost exactly a year.
Almost exactly a year.
If I'm talking about the same thing as you.
Yeah, well, so year and a half, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
I was 225 pounds. If you asked me what I wanted to do or what I liked doing, I couldn't tell you. I didn't know. You see, I was so gobbled up with money and with business and success that I didn't even recognize feelings in the home. I didn't even recognize like my daughter and the feelings she had. And this went way before like a year ago. This is like
This is just kind of
4 years, right?
This is kind of, we're going to talk about kind of like the climax of like all of the point where we were like, okay, something has to change.
100%.
And we've kind of talked about this specific time in our life before. Like we're going to talk about like what kind of immediately led up to that.
Yeah, 100%. And I recognize that like our daughter, ages 1, I was so happy having her from like 0 to 1. And then 1 to 2, I just kind of had this decline, and then 2 to 3, and there was just this miserable, like honestly, just a miserable couch potato.
There's a lot. I would say like you weren't a miserable couch potato. You were doing a lot of things.
I was doing a lot of things, but
you weren't aligned necessarily. We weren't aligned.
No.
Neither of us were aligned individually or together.
Right.
But like, I think we were both doing a lot of things, but some of them weren't necessarily the right things.
Oh, it was just
or not with the right attitude. Like there was a lot of
100%.
stress and a lot of just stress, really. Like
yeah.
there were days when the stress just like it would cause a lot of tension in our home and a lot of frustration towards each other that, you know, was completely unnecessary.
Well, and what I think it came down to as well was beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. I remember specifically growing up and my dad would say, you have to work hard to make more money. Like you got to put in the time to make more money. And I grew up thinking that. I mean, I worked at Lagoon. It's a local theme park in Utah. I worked there like 10-hour days at 13 years old, 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And then I would turn around and go work at Taco Bell, right? And I would just work and work and work. And that was just to put food on the table for my family to help pay for bills or whatever the case. And so I had this dichotomy that I accepted at such a young age that I had to work long hours to put in time. And so for me, my whole driving force was I need to work so I can provide the life for my family that I didn't have as a kid.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
you felt your value in like the time you were putting in, and like almost like if you were stressed out because of work, it was like a good thing because that meant that you were
focused
pushing,
and going
you were like
through something,
doing more than if you were pushing yourself to the point of like exhaustion and frustration, then good, you were doing a good job. Which is interesting that you say, because like while we were dating, you were working a ton of hours.
Oh yeah.
In our like the beginning of our marriage, like while we were in school full time, you would get up at like
2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, to go work, really hard, like difficult job.
Yeah.
And I mean, also on one end, like, you know, admirable, right? Because we were just starting out, like we were learning all the things, and it's such a good, humble, awesome way to start for us to like work hard and do. So I'm not saying that like learning to work hard is necessarily a bad thing, but it's interesting associating it with your programs growing up of like where you were placing value on yourself and on like your providing.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. You mentioned that, like, to go back even further, when we first were dating, I worked from 2 to 10:30 in the morning. I'd get up after 10:30, I'd run over to the gym, get a quick hour workout in, go home, shower, and then I'd go to school until 8:00 at night. And
then drive home, and then we would like do homework together and hang out till like midnight, and then you'd get up 2 hours later.
And I'd get up and go 2 hours later, and I'd slam down a rock star, and I would just be a freaking workhorse. Like, you put me in if there was a medal for working hard, I would win every gold medal. Like that was just my mentality. And so that translated over as we went into our entrepreneurial journey as well. And so I almost, like you said, welcomed problems and stress because it meant I had work. And I'd look for new ways. If I was not busy, I'd look for ways to create work. And it just got to this point. On the flip side, your dichotomy was that you grew up with your dad in your life.
Yeah.
And your dad was always there. He was there for everything.
Yeah. He worked very hard, and he worked, you know, like as much as he needed to, but he was always there.
He also knew when to quit, like to call it quits and say, all right, I'm going to be here with my family. Whereas my dad would not. You know, my dad would be downstairs smoking marijuana. And
also part of that was like my family for a long time of my childhood owned a business. And so work was out of our like warehouse, our garage.
Right.
Like it was like a family thing.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, and that'd be the thing, is your dad would be able to shut it off. My dad would be downstairs smoking marijuana
or he'd
doing
say,
crack.
Come out and watch me, you know, run the business. Like, you know.
Whereas my dad would be like, leave me the heck alone.
Yeah.
Insert explicitive there, you know. And so here's the deal, is like Ambry and I, we bring these two dichotomies, her upbringing, my upbringing, and we try to form this business together. Yeah. And ultimately what happens is I start becoming like my father. In essence, I'm working a ton. And I am not taking care of myself. And because I'm not taking care of myself, I'm starting to get overweight. And as I get overweight, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
My back starts to hurt. I have pains. Like I'm 80 pounds overweight based off of where I want to be and where I'm headed now. And because of that, I was miserable. I was lazy. I was tired. And then all I was doing is filling myself up with more caffeine, more energy drinks. And that was burning me out and I was literally, once again, you say not couch potato, but I say couch potato because that's all I was. Is the minute I finally got to sit down, all I wanted to do is watch a stupid movie.
Yeah.
That's it. I didn't want to be invested. I didn't want to go dance with our little girl. I didn't want to go for a walk.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go on a hike. I didn't like any of that stuff because I was so invested in work that took all my energy.
And I was in a position where like, I just like, I mean, maybe like our relationship, like struggled in ways that I didn't really understand at the time.
Sure.
But we were happy, like, you know.
We were happy.
But there was a level of joy that we were missing, a level of like alignment that we were 100% off the mark.
100%.
And I know for me, like I was in a spot where it was like, even though maybe we weren't 100% happy, I felt comfortable because I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't being like put in a position to challenge myself and to be uncomfortable and to take additional like risks. And so because of that, like, you know, I wasn't growing. I was stagnated because I wasn't putting myself in decisions and in new opportunities where I could actually grow and would have to change and like dissect some programs that I've had forever, right?
Right.
Because I didn't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
It was like a standstill, comfortable spot. Like, anyways.
100%. And I think it finally erupted about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, somewhere in between there. And it erupted at that point. And I'll never forget it, right? Like we just had Trey and that was a whole different dynamic. And then, you know, I wanted to work long hours. You were tired because you were working long hours as mom. Yeah. I mean, your hours never stop, right? So you should actually get the medal for outworking me. But
I'm also feeling like this, you know, like I have had to kind of take a huge step back from my role in our business. And that was really hard for a minute. And, you know, like there's just a lot of feelings and emotions, but like I was not giving myself permission to be the very best version of myself. And then you talk about like, you know, things that you maybe learned from your dad or your parents growing up. And something that I've realized that I took on is like just not expressing my feelings, like holding those things in and just like I'd be so upset and there would be a deep reason for it, but I just didn't feel like I could express that. And so then it would just lead to like deeper and deeper frustration and confusion and, you know, like how unfair is that in a relationship, right? Like if you don't understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, how are you ever going to help me resolve, you know, that emotion, right?
Yep.
So I had to choose to like raise the bar for myself of like what I actually wanted, how I wanted to feel.
Yeah.
Instead of just being okay with feeling like, meh, you know?
Right. And it finally bottled over one day and we have both the kids. We're sitting in front of this pizza joint. You didn't want to eat pizza. I wanted to eat pizza because I was chubby. You were taking care of yourself. I was kind of tired. Quite frankly, I was just tired.
That's where we were. That's
I was
so
tired
funny.
of just I don't want this because like you said, you wouldn't open up and you're like, oh, I don't want
I knew
pizza.
all the things I didn't want, but I wasn't aligned and truly dialed in on what it is I wanted or I was afraid to say it because I thought that, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. We ended up having a massive blow up in front of our daughter who was just sitting there crying in the background, like trying to console us, like trying to separate us, like, you guys, calm down. And I remember you looking at me specifically, and you're just like, what do you even like to do? Like, what is it that you enjoy? And I sat there and I didn't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
I'd lost myself so deep into work that I couldn't even tell you something I enjoyed.
Yeah.
All I could say is basketball. Well, yeah, you like basketball. Yeah. What else do you like? Like, who are you?
Yeah. And losing your identity in a relationship is like very dangerous. It's sad. It's like, it's just not, I mean, the person you love loves you for you. Mm-hmm. So if you lose that, then what, right? I mean, like, and in this specific conversation, like we looked at each other and we're just like, there's no doubt we love each other deeply. Like there is a connection and a bond there that like, you know, would be hard to break. But at the same time, we're both looking at each other going like, this isn't working. Yeah. Like this is not working. We both deserve to be happier than this.
Right. And it was either like, we either have to work together or we have to separate. And that was what it was getting down to. And
neither of us like wanted to accept that as a reality, because we're like, no, like that's not what either of us want.
Correct.
So then we had to choose to raise the bar.
Yes.
Individually.
And that's where it gets really deep here. You see, we talk about like, you don't know what you want. I didn't know what I wanted, all this stuff, right? Like, and how we're misaligned. You were afraid of opening your voice. And I honestly was just afraid of not working.
Yeah.
As silly as that sounds.
Okay. Here's an example. I don't know if I've shared this one before, but like there was one day when I'm trying to remember the exact detail, but I think, okay, there was a day when we had something going on and I had something specific that I wanted to wear, but it would have required me to wash that specific item in the laundry, right? And like, it didn't make a lot of sense in this situation to start a load of laundry.
Oh, yeah.
However, like, I wanted to wear that item. So realistically, I should just do a load of laundry with that one item in it so I can wear it and be happy, right? And I remember, like, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do it. And I was going to start this small little load of laundry and have the item I wanted. And I remember, like, you walking by and you questioned saying, like, are you starting laundry right now? Like, or something like that. Like, why are you starting laundry right now? Because it really didn't make sense for me to be starting laundry in the sense of, like, starting a huge load of laundry to dry and fold, right?
Right.
And in that moment, like, I kind of took on your perception of that situation and was like, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense. And rather than like explaining to you, like, actually, I just really want to wear this shirt, so I'm going to just do a small load and wear this shirt.
Right.
I just like didn't say anything and didn't even do the laundry. And I just like was like, oh yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. Like I just kind of surrendered to that. And you didn't even know. Right. You didn't even mean to, like, that was not your intention at all.
Curious.
You were just like, oh, why are you starting laundry? Kind of thinking like, oh, don't put that on yourself right now when we're about to leave or whatever it was, right?
Right.
So like you're caring about my situation. And I 100% afterwards realized, I'm like, man, if I would have just told Jesse like, hey, like, I actually just really want to wear the shirt, you would have been like, oh, awesome. Yeah, do a load of laundry. Right. Like,
yeah.
You know, but you were just curious, like, why would you be stressing yourself out, doing a little laundry while we're trying to leave? Like, it's okay, Ambry, just call, you know, you don't need to do laundry right now.
Right.
But going back to like, I would like not do what I actually wanted to do because I thought that in your model of the world, it didn't make sense. So if it didn't make sense to you, I shouldn't do it. When realistically, if I would just tell you what it was that I was doing and wanted, you'd be like, cool.
Yeah.
Even if you still thought it didn't make sense, you would be like, great, you should do what you want to do.
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing with couples is that you have a good heart and you want to help each other. However, because you're so focused on all the things you don't want, that it becomes clouded within the relationship on what you truly want or why you're doing it. And so when you're questioned, like in that case, it comes back down to like, well, if you would just tell me what you wanted, great. I love you. I want you to have what you want. Like that's my goal. So sure. Would I do that? Probably not. I'd find a different shirt. However, if you want to do that and that's what makes you happy, then by all means do it. Right.
But we make a lot of assumptions like of the other person based on our model of the world.
Exactly.
Which is really unfair to each other.
It's unfair. And it comes back down, like, I'll say this over and over. I mean, I've had grown men cry at Chipotle about this kind of stuff. It comes back down to you've got to know what you want and communicate what you want.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Like, plain and simple. If you tell me I want this shirt, I need to wash it, cool. right? If I tell you I want to go to this event, cool. Like, and you've got to be willing and stop assuming what that other person's thinking. You have to raise your own bar, though. And that's what Ambry and I want to talk about is the fact that, like, oh, whoops. The fact is that so many times you're not raising the bar. You're expecting to stay there saying all the things you don't want when really you're afraid to go say what you do want. And you're not allowing yourself or giving yourself permission to communicate the very thing you want. So you're not even raising your bar.
Yeah.
You're not trying to change. And then you just expect your spouse to jump on board and be like, oh, you know, like read your thoughts.
Or you think the problem's all on them.
Yeah. Oh, my wife won't let me go to this event because she would want to go too, and the kids. And you start like throwing it and creating this huge narrative when realistically all you have to do is say, I want to go to this event. And I remember, here's a great example. I remember there was a particular event and you were like, well, who are you going to go with? And I was like, quite frankly, I'm like, if you want to come, great. I could go sit by myself and I would be happy as a clam. I don't need to go with anyone. I just want to go. And you just kind of laughed. You're like, that's kind of funny. And I'm like, but I would love it if you would come. However, just so you know, I want to go this regardless. And this is kind of where I stand. And it made that conversation kind of funny because you're like, you'd really just go sit there by yourself? And I'm like, absolutely, 100%. Like, in fact, it might even be easier in some cases because then we don't have to find a babysitter. But that's the thing is like, you cannot be assuming what your spouse is thinking. You cannot be assuming based off of their past experiences. And I think that's the other thing I want to hit the nail on the head is if you're trying to level up, you've got to drop your assumptions on what your spouse actually thinks, especially if your spouse is trying to level up too.
Yeah.
Right? You can't go back to these
powerful.
old narratives of, oh, this person in the past would have done this, especially when you know they're trying to change and grow.
Yeah.
Right? I can't go to you and say, hey, Ambry, in the past here, we would, go to frozen yogurt. In our house, we call it Frozo because our little girl loves it. But in the past, you go to frozen yogurt. And so therefore, we're going to go to frozen yogurt when you're on a quest of, being excellent with your body. You can't do that. And you can't go back in the past. You've got to recognize and say, hey, you know what? I understand that fitness is important right now in this moment for you. Or are you interested in doing this? And if the answer is no, you got to be okay with it and support them.
Right. And I think just also to your point, not assuming that their answer is going to be the same based on past experience, right? Because the journey they're on is different, just like you said. And sometimes that maybe doesn't require, but it could be helpful to set an expectation, right? I remember one time coming to you and saying okay, here's the thing. In these kind of situations, this is how I normally respond. I'm really working on trying to change that. And so here's what I want. Here's what I'm going to do. And will you please give me a little extra love and patience in these situations? Will you please but here's where I'm coming from. And it might seem weird. It might seem different, or you might kind of be like, what? But here's my intention. Here's what what I want to do for my growth.
Working through something.
Yeah.
Right.
And letting them know so that, when this certain situation comes up and you don't react the way you normally do, they're not what's going on? But they can actually support you and love you through that. And I love that because that creates vulnerability for one, which to me is one of the most beautiful things about marriage and a relationship. And it's something that I've really started to lean into over the last year because, I think for so long I would assume that I needed to protect myself in certain ways. And then at one point realized that the more vulnerable I could be, the more Jesse had the desire to help and empower me and to support me through that growth and those, changes, which has made all the difference. It always has, but me allowing it in my heart has made an even bigger difference.
Oh, 100%. And the energy's different too. And so that's another thing I want to hit in this conversation here is the fact that you got to raise your individual bar. You have got to change. It's not your spouse's. It's never been your spouse's problem. Sure, there may be some interesting cases where your spouse may be abusive.
Yeah, if
Right?
it's something like that, like obviously there's exceptions to
I don't
this.
feel like I'm qualified.
No.
However, I will ask, and I'll ask this with all the love in my heart, are you allowing that?
Right.
And are you standing up for yourself? Are you allowing to be hit? You see, when I was a kid, my father was abusive as heck. And I tell people this all the time. Like, I had this idea that it didn't matter. I could get hit as hard and it would hurt as bad as it could, but I would get up as fast as I could to show myself I was tough and I could handle it, right? But there are times when you just wanted to lay there, and there were times that you just wanted someone to come pick you up,
Yeah.
right? But I wouldn't allow that. And so
And like just a quick like insert, if you are experiencing anything like that in a relationship, please reach out. Like
yes,
whether it's to us, like not saying that we're professional to support you, right? But like we will help you. Like
100%.
we will help you find resources, and like you should look for resources, right. And you should not tolerate that at all.
But once again, with all the lightness of heart, if you're in an abusive relationship, whether it's verbal, physical, sexual, whatever the case, and you're not doing anything, you've got to raise your bar and you've got to put a stop to it to the best you can, right? You do deserve it. And it goes even down into just regular relationships, right? If you're not happy in your relationship, you've got to raise the bar for you, right? It's not your husband's fault or your wife's fault that you're fat. I had to accept that. I had to accept that it's not my wife's fault. In fact, if you know Ambry, you know that she's probably cooking like broccoli or cauliflower rice or these healthy options, and I'm the one personally choosing to eat at McDonald's. That was me.
That was the reality about a year and a half ago.
That was the reality about a year ago. And so I had to make that change. I had to raise that bar. But let me tell you, men, no one thinks a dad bod's hot. I'll be honest. And if you think you look good, you don't. I'll be honest.
Scorched.
Okay? I don't care anymore, because what I can tell you is this. The confidence that I have by walking around knowing I've lost weight, the power, the attraction I have in a room, walking around feeling my best self, knowing I've lost 80 pounds and everyone else is over there eating donuts and I'm sitting there focusing on eating what I'm eating because I know where I'm going. That is very empowering. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was at an event where I was sitting there talking to a gentleman and they're all eating this junk crap food. And they're like, well, why are you eating just chicken? And I'm like, because I'm going to get down to 10% body fat. I have 12 more pounds to go. And I was so focused that they're all just kind of like, oh, crap. Like, I don't want to eat this food. So once again, you're not attractive with your dad bod. I'm just going to say it out there. Your wife would love to see you in more physical fitness and better shape. And you think that your relationship's going to be better? You think you walk into your house and you're feeling your best self? You don't think your wife's going to look at you differently? And number two, do you not think that your love life is going to be better too? And your love for your children is going to be better because you're getting the love that you want from your spouse and the love that you have for other people?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it comes down to. It's no one else's fault but yours.
Yeah. I don't disagree with any of that. And I'll add that, like, I feel like for me, like, you've done incredible things for yourself over the last year, and it motivates me. Like, I feel like let's just talk about fitness for a minute, right? Like, I feel like I was in a okay spot. Like, I was in okay shape. Like, I wouldn't say I ever kind of let myself go, in my opinion, for myself, right? And I always tried to I want to feel healthy. I want to feel like I'm my best self, right? But I do feel like I was kind of in a, just a plateau. Yeah. And your motivation, watching you do what you've done, motivates the heck out of me and makes me go, well, what can I do? What's my next level? How can I level up? And it's not oh, I need to do more to deserve you, or, oh, I need to it's holy cow, look what you've done. Like, I respect it so much and appreciate it so much. And it makes me go like, I want to dig deeper in myself because I know that there's more in me. Like if you can find that new level and that deeper, progress, I could do that too. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is like, what's really cool about this whole thing is like when you choose to level up yourself and when you choose to raise your own bar, those that are like aligned with you and respect and love you will naturally do the same.
Yes.
And it's so powerful. Like, and 100%, like, I mean, our relationship from a year ago to now is almost unrecognizable. Like, right. And that might sound dramatic, but I mean it. Like just the way that we feel about each other, the way we look at each other, the way we, I'd say it's even better than when we first got married. Yeah. Because we have found so much more purpose and alignment and understanding and communication and, all these 10, almost 11 years of experience that we've used in our favor. Yeah. And rather than allowing ourselves to grow apart, because that can happen very easily and very quickly if you allow it to. Mm-hmm. It will. Like, I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, if you are not intentionally focused and committed and motivated in a direction together, you'll fall apart.
Yep.
And there are forces that would love that to happen in your home, out in the world. Like, there are negative, evil forces that will encourage the heck out of that because, unfortunately, that's just the nature of
your phone agrees.
My phone agrees. My timer's going off for a task that I have to complete tonight that I forgot about. But anyways, yeah, so you have to find that continual alignment and continual progress and motivate each other. I love that so much. Like when we have days where I feel like we are just like pushing each other in such positive ways, I love it. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh man, like Jesse's right. Like, but I feel like I take your constructive criticism. I don't even like the way that sounds. Like I take your feedback and, the way you see what I'm doing in such a different way than I used to.
Right.
I have so much more respect behind it because of the way that you conduct yourself and the way that you have elevated your life. Like when you look at a situation and you're like, here's what I see. What used to maybe would offend me or make me feel very hurt or upset. Now I'm like, he's right. Like, and I know it's because you only want the best for me and right. You want me to be my best self. You see so much more in me, the potential I have that you're like, don't settle for this.
Yeah. So, and the conversation's different too. Like before it would be like, I'm going to be a little hesitant. I don't want to hurt feelings or make anyone feel bad. Now it's like, babe, I know what you want. I know what I want. And this isn't it. I know you and I know what you're capable of. And honestly, you're not giving it your all right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that relationship is interesting because if your spouse came up and said that to you right now, like depending on your relationship, that might be a key indicator that you need to really listen to what we're saying. Is if your spouse came up and said, hey, I know you've got more in the tank and I want to see it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that going to make you offended?
Or if you're using a lot of like sarcasm and subtle jabs that are just kind of like
right.
a joke, but not really.
Right.
Where you're like...
Another fat boy,
Oh, gosh.
Like,
that's not very subtle, but yeah.
But,
that kind of thing.
That
like,
kind of stuff.
Where it's just like, like there's red flags there that you could be curious about.
Yeah.
But just like more than anything, like you deserve the best. Your spouse deserves the best. But
100%.
Go back and listen to one of our first episodes. It's all about you. It's all about you.
100%.
It starts with you.
Yes.
You need to be happy. You need to be aligned. You need to understand yourself and be your highest and best self in order to offer that person to someone else.
Well, and I'm going to say this too. I heard this by Jay Shetty. I was unfamiliar, but I listened to a podcast and he just put this so effortlessly that it made me just go, yeah, he's absolutely right. But love is living, right? And all living things either grow or die.
Yeah.
So where are you focusing with your love? Are you trying to grow it or are you killing it? There's no middle ground. There's no, oh, hey, I'm going to stay here. It either continues to flourish or dies,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, if you don't believe me, go look at my flower beds. Like, I'll tell you which ones live and which ones die. But that's the case, is love is living. And so I want to say it one more time. It's, you're either growing in love or you're dying in love. And I want you to really ask yourself that. Am I living, or am I growing, or am I dying?
Yeah.
And I want you to consider it. Don't worry about all the other technicalities associated with it. Just ask yourself that question. And if the first word comes to your mind is that you're dying, this is where you need to raise the bar. This is your calling card right now. This is where you say, you know what? I'm not going to let this die.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I guarantee what it is it is a bunch of, and I'm going to use this term, I'm going to use it forever on this podcast, but it's a bunch of unconscious zombies. Most people.
Did you just coin that? Is that a new thing?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
You're just a zombie and you're doing things so unconsciously, just like my relationship with, I have to work more to make more money, and your relationship with, my father was always there, so my husband should always be there.
Yeah.
If we were both walking.
My father always, like, he never really truly expressed how he felt, at least not that I saw.
Right.
And so I thought, well, that's the best thing to do.
Right. And so if you were walking unconsciously in those same actions, and I was walking unconsciously in those same actions, and we didn't actually try to fix it.
But we both thought we were doing the best thing for, it's almost like sanctifying something that is, like, actually not good, not serving you.
Correct.
Like,
but I can tell you that ultimately the result would be not one here where we're sitting here having this podcast. No. And that's the cold hard truth. So if you're walking 100%. Around and you're an unconscious zombie in your relationship, and you're telling yourself, you know what, I think our love is actually dying, this is your calling card to become more aware and to start working on you. Don't worry about your spouse. Your spouse will jump on board if they truly love you. Yeah. But maybe this is your calling card.
There's the test right there.
Yeah. Maybe this is your calling card to recognize, like, you know what, I've got to get in shape.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that I've got to invest more time with my kids. Maybe it's, you know what, I've actually got to pull my head out of my butt and get a real job. Like, you know, whatever it is, that's the case. And this episode, I can't stress this out enough, but I will tell you, I've been there. Yeah. You have been there. We have been there together. And it is not fun pulling yourself out of the mess. Yeah. It is not fun going back and looking at all of your unconscious habits and recognizing that you truly screwed up. Yeah. Royally. Yeah. And sucks. It's no fun having to go back and live and say, you know, for the first 8 years of our marriage, I was just walking unconscious. I was an unconscious zombie making poor decisions based off of the way I was raised. I was never.
I think you should give yourself some credit, though, because the only way we would have gotten to that climax of, like, are we all in or not, is by making the decisions that we did make and pushing the boundaries like we did. Sure. Otherwise, we would have just kind of, like,
well, and you have to honor your current situation and what you've been given, right? And what you've worked through.
In your past. And
exactly. You have to honor that and be respectful towards it. But at the end of the day, I do look at it and go, man, 8 years of our first, like, of us being married, and there's so much more I could have done. So much more I could have eliminated. And once again, there are times and there are seasons, but that's why we, Ambry and I, have spent $100,000 plus on coaching so that we could create this podcast for you to help you. Like, we recognize this. We've been there. We've been at the gallows, in essence. Like, we were at the deepest of deep as far as relationship goes, and we had to pull ourselves out. And has it been easy? In some cases, it has. Has it been hard? Oh yeah. It's never fun recognizing and admitting the fact that you were not a good person. Like, you were not where you wanted to be.
You weren't your highest version of yourself possible.
Right.
That's, you know.
I mean, no matter how many times you looked at it, I'm going to share it. I have to say it. But no matter how many times you look at it, you're still a vanilla gorilla, you know, until you actually start focusing on it. I love that term. It's the funniest thing. And so if you're a vanilla gorilla and you're just this hairy, giant, you know, individual, you need to change it up.
Wow.
That
was something. Anyways, so to break off of that,
this is not a
I'm
going to
go back
podcast.
to you mentioned the podcast with Jay Shetty and Ed Milet.
Yeah.
One thing that I really loved that they said in that podcast was that like the best way to love someone involves liking their personality, mutually respecting each other's values, and helping them achieve their goals. Right. Mm-hmm. And I also want to say off of that, like that also has to happen within yourself individually before you can. So like, do you like your own personality? Do you respect your own values? And are you trying to help yourself achieve your own goals?
Yep.
Because if you're expecting your spouse to do the same for you, you have to have that in place for yourself. And then, be able to reciprocate those things with each other. And like the last thing I'll say is like, when you experience like this growth, you watch your spouse experience growth and elevate themselves, like it's incredible. And it really pushes you and causes you to burst out of your own like boundaries or limits you've set.
Yes.
And the reason I say this is because like some of the growth and the incredible things Jesse has done in the last year, like have benefited me personally in so many ways as his wife, as a mom, like, and it's so incredible. Like I could talk about it all day because I just have so much love and respect for you and what you've done. Then on the other hand, there's some things that you have like experienced or things that, like new opportunities that have come because of this growth that start to challenge my, my insecurities, my comfort, like these things. And then it's like, I want to like revert back to like my old ways. I want to be like, but then I'm like, but wait, if I do that, then that means I also have to like revert back to, the way we used to be. Like I can't have one version of Jesse and still hold on to the other, right? Like I can't have all the wonderful like versions of, I'm just going to say new and old Jesse because I don't know how else to put it, but like Jesse a year ago versus Jesse now. Like I can't hang on to like some things, but then expect you to like not be the best version of yourself in other ways because it challenges my beliefs or my limiting beliefs, right? Having a hard time putting words on that, but hopefully that makes sense where it's like, if you, like when you experience this growth, like, that's why like your spouse will naturally, like if they love and respect you, they will elevate, they will raise their own bar because there are certain things that you've done that require me to find and lean into a higher version of myself that doesn't feel insecure, that doesn't feel limited by certain beliefs or certain feelings, that doesn't feel like inadequate because, like you're empowering me and you're showing me like things that can be done and doing things that challenge us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I look at it and just say like, if I'm pushing you to a different limit and you want to stay in your zone, at that point we start to grow apart.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where you have that choice, but it's not my choice to make it.
Exactly.
It's 100% your choice.
Yeah.
And
as long as everything's, if it's healthy and it's all aligned in the same goal, I have to choose, like, am I going to allow these certain limiting beliefs or feelings that I have hold me back and in turn either hold you back or push us apart? Or am I going to push myself beyond that comfort boundary and I'm going to grow and I'm actually going to become a higher, better version of myself? Because of like these experiences that we are creating.
And you do a phenomenal job pushing through. I just want to say like the growth like has been amazing, and you talk about me a lot and I appreciate that, but like I admire you for who you are and what you've been going through as well, because the thing is ultimately like there are old beliefs and old patterns and old habits.
Every one of us have them.
All of us have it, and it is hard sometimes to let go of that. It's hard to let go of a 9 p.m. craving for ice cream and a Coke Zero with lime. It's hard to let go of that kind of stuff if you're talking about food, but it's even harder letting go of something you didn't even know was a bad thing.
It's even harder walking away from a relationship that you really loved and then looking back and going, I could have changed. I could have done something different.
Right.
I could have, I could have changed my relationship. I could have done better.
Yeah.
And I could have experienced more love, more alignment. Our children could be the happiest days that they've ever been.
Yeah.
What if that were the case instead?
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that's the path we chose because of where we were at a year and a half ago. Both of us can truly say, like, we could see how it could have gone the other direction.
Sure.
And how, like, that literally just makes me so sad inside to think that that could have been our reality. And it is the reality for so many people. But here to say, like, if you are in that place, for one, it's okay. Like, it's very, like, normal and common, and it's something that can be changed in a huge way, and it can happen very fast.
Yes, it can.
Like, so fast to where you're like, holy cow. Last month, we didn't know if we were still in love with each other. This month, I'm madly in love with you.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And, that's, I feel like it happened really, really fast for us as we started becoming more and more aligned. And what's beautiful is seeing all of the students that go through Emerge coaching and seeing that too. We've had such amazing feedback and conversations with a few people that have just this is why we're doing what we're doing.
Vulnerability changes lives,
yes.
people.
And once again, it comes back down to, I think deep down inside, we all wish things could be different. Like, growing up with divorced parents, I do think that my mom and my dad both have asked themselves what would have been like if I could have changed.
Yeah.
I think that there was that question at some point. And I think that there might be some regret in that case. And I also think that there may not be, for certain
Such
areas.
wonderful things come from change. And there are situations where that is necessary, and that is going to allow you to become your best self.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
Luckily for us, we both were aligned in the fact that this isn't working. We're not happy, but we're not going to give up. I'm not going to just walk away, and luckily for us also, there were no major issues as far as loyalty or addiction or anything like that. It was just purely
living
natural growing apart due to growing our family, growing a business, trying to rediscover ourselves. I mean, also there's the fact that we got married so young, and I'm so grateful for that because of the life we've been able to build. But we have, we raised each other for the first 5 years of our marriage.
Yeah.
But
it's true.
The amount of times that we have raised, not risen. It's getting late. The amount of times that we have raised the bar for ourselves in our entire marriage, but specifically, I can't talk, the last year is incredible. And if you're feeling any kind of uneasiness or disalignment in your relationship, raise the bar for yourself.
And you can do it by joining our 5-day challenge. That's a great way to start.
Yeah.
And come to Emerge.
You'll know
sign
how
up
to
for
do
the
it.
5-day challenge, and that's a great Kickstarter into helping you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say this. You and I have known each other. This kind of just came to me. But you've been a part of my life for 1/3 of my life.
Whoa.
Isn't that interesting?
Because you'll be 33 this year.
Yeah. So if
and
you
we'll
did,
be married 11 years
for
this
most
year.
couples that have been married for 10 years, assuming that, you got married in your 20s, 1/3 of your life you've been with this person.
Wow.
So think about that. There's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of things that, 1/3 of your life, if you're just giving up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 1/3 of your life taken away. And what if it could be easy for you? What if the things that were really the problem were actually not the problem?
It's a mirror of yourself.
And it was just a mirror of your decisions. And I'm not going to say that it's your fault. But what I'm going to say is, as you become more aware and understand that you're in control of your own reality, you'll find that the people around you change with you.
Yeah.
And if you want to go somewhere higher and you start to change your reality, you will find massive, massive growth and a different love that you've never experienced before.
100%.
So
that's the perfect way to end this episode.
that's it.
Beautiful.
We're both over here just like looking at each other going, wow, mind blown. And then also like, oh my gosh, it's tiring. It's exhausting. But just want to say thank you for listening to the Matrimonial Merger podcast. We appreciate you. And if we have struck an emotional chord, how could we not? I mean, I literally just like scorched the earth. So,
unless you're an unconscious zombie, like
or a vanilla gorilla, then you got to get out of here. Ambry hates that term, but it is the funniest.
You
like,
just need to stop.
it's just the way it's just the way it rhymes. But if we struck an emotional chord with you tonight, please share this with a friend. We heard, you know what, real quick, someone did share this with a friend, and you know what we heard is this particular friend literally listened to the podcast. It changed her life, and she went on to something different, and that was so cool to hear. And so, think about that as you share this with your friends. You may actually help someone, and this episode may actually speak directly to them. And it's designed for specific people, and your friends are those people. So give us an honest review, share with your friends, and we hope you have a beautiful week.
Until next week.